first sign of trouble came from the edge of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Crystal Network, a communication system that had worked for 10,000 years, suddenly went dark. The crystals that carried messages across space stopped glowing. They just died. Commander Veltar of the Galactic Council stared at the dead crystal in his hands. It had been bright blue just hours ago. Now it looked like ordinary rock. Around him, other council members from different alien races whispered in fear. The Zephyrians were the strongest psychic race in the galaxy, said High Priestess Mora from the Luminal Collective. Her energy form flickered with worry. If something happened to them, what does that mean for the rest of us? Veltar did not have an answer. The Zephyrians had minds so powerful they could move mountains with their thoughts. Their crystal cities floated in space without any machines to hold them up. They were pure intellect made real. Then came the reports from the outer systems. Ship after ship arrived at Council space with the same terrible news. The Zephyrian homeworlds were empty, not destroyed, not attacked, just empty. The crystal cities still floated in space, but there was no one inside them. We sent probe ships, reported Captain Crix from the Mechanical Union. His robotic voice showed no emotion, but his metal hands shook as he spoke. The cities are perfect. No damage, no signs of fighting. But every Zephyrian is gone. Not dead, gone, like they never existed. The council chamber fell silent. 47 different alien races sat around the great table. Some breathed air, others lived in water tanks, and a few existed as pure energy. They had different bodies, but they all shared the same fear. More reports came in over the following days. The collective worlds had gone quiet. These were beings that shared one great mind across millions of bodies. They had ruled half the galaxy with their perfect unity. Now their planets spun in space with no one on them. Dr. Zenthia, the Council's chief scientist, studied the data with her 4 arms working at different computers. Her green skin had turned pale with shock. The pattern is clear, she announced to the emergency session. Whatever is destroying these civilizations moves in a straight line from the galactic core. It hits the most advanced races first, the ones with the strongest minds. What could do this? Asked Ambassador Roth from the Crystal Federation. The collective had 1 billion minds working as one. The Zephyrians could reshape reality with their thoughts. What power could simply erase them? Dr. Zenthia's data screens showed star maps covered in red zones. Areas where advanced civilizations once lived, now marked as empty space. The probe data shows something strange, she continued. The ships that investigate these dead worlds, their crews start acting differently. They become confused. They forget things. Some ships return with crews that don't remember their own names. The truth became clear when the research ship Bright Mind returned from investigating a dead Zephyrian world. The ship's crew of 50 brilliant scientists came back as empty shells. They could walk and eat, but they stared at walls with empty eyes. They had forgotten how to speak. Something is eating intelligence itself, Dr. Zenthia reported with horror in her voice, not just killing the advanced races. Consuming their minds, their thoughts, their very ability to think. Admiral Koros stood up at the war planning table. He commanded the largest fleet in the galaxy. His people, the Drakmari, were warriors from a heavy-gravity world. They were not the smartest race, but they were tough. Then we fight, he declared. We send every ship, every weapon. We stop this thing before it spreads further. With what? Dr. Zenthia asked. Our weapons are guided by computer minds. Our shields are controlled by artificial intelligence. Our fastest ships need psychic navigation to travel between stars. Everything we have depends on intelligence. And that is exactly what this enemy destroys. The room filled with panicked voices. Representatives argued and shouted in dozens of different languages. Some wanted to run to the far edge of the galaxy. Others demanded a final battle. Many just sat in stunned silence. There is worse news, Dr. Zenthia said, and the room became quiet again. I have been studying the pattern of attacks. I know where this enemy will strike next. She activated the main display. It showed the galaxy with a red line moving through it like an infection. The line pointed toward the inner systems, toward the heart of galactic civilization. The Nexus Prime system will be next, she announced, home to the Council worlds and 20 billion of the galaxy's greatest minds. After that, she paused as the display zoomed further in. The Sol system. Sol? Ambassador Roth looked confused. Where the humans live. But they are barely advanced enough for space travel. Surely this enemy will ignore such a primitive world? No, Dr. Zenthia said quietly. The pattern shows it will hit every system with intelligent life, even the humans. Admiral Koros laughed, but there was no humor in it. The humans, those violent little creatures who still fight each other with crude weapons, they have no psychic powers, no collective consciousness, no crystal technology. They will be destroyed in minutes. The council began to break apart as representatives left to warn their homeworlds. Some would try to evacuate their people to distant galaxies. Others would prepare for hopeless final battles. In all the panic and fear, no one noticed the small communications officer at the back of the room. She had been quietly sending out standard warning messages to all systems in the galaxy, including a certain yellow star system on the edge of known space, a system where a young species called humanity had just received their first galaxy-wide emergency broadcast. On Earth, deep in a military communications center, a technician stared at his screen in confusion. "Sir," he called to his commander, "I'm getting some kind of signal from deep space. It's not one of our satellites. The message is, well, it's asking for help from something called the Galactic Council." Commander Sarah Chen walked over to look at the display. The message was being translated by their computers, but it did not make much sense. "Ancient enemy has awakened," she read aloud. "Consuming civilizations across galaxy. Request immediate assistance from all intelligent species. Coordinates attached." Chen stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. "Get me the Pentagon," she said. "And someone find me our best linguists. I think we just got invited to our first galactic war." In space, the enemy continued its slow advance toward the inner systems. It had no name that living minds could understand. It was old when the galaxy was young. It fed on thought itself, growing stronger with each mind it consumed. The advanced races called it many things: the void, the silence, the end of all knowledge. But it cared nothing for names. It only hungered for the bright flames of consciousness that burned throughout the galaxy, and it could sense them all. Every single intelligent mind in the galaxy shone like a beacon to its ancient hunger, from the greatest collective consciousness to the smallest individual thought, including a small, chaotic, violent little world where billions of primitive minds burned with an almost painful brightness, a world that had no idea what was coming for it, or what it would choose to do when the darkness finally arrived. 3 days after the first distress signals reached Earth, humanity held its first interstellar crisis meeting. It took place in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, where representatives from every major nation had gathered in secret. General Patricia Morrison stood before a room full of confused world leaders. Behind her, a massive screen showed star charts that had been transmitted from the Galactic Council. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we are not alone in the universe. And apparently we never were." President Zhang of the Eastern Coalition leaned forward. "General, are you telling us that aliens are real and they want our help?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you, sir." Morrison clicked a button and the screen filled with translated messages from across the galaxy. "These signals have been coming in non-stop for 72 hours. All from different star systems, all saying the same thing." Prime Minister Abbas read from the transcript. "Ancient destroyer has consumed the Nexus worlds. Zephyrian Empire is no more. Collective consciousness has been silenced. Request military assistance from all sapient species." "Military assistance?" President Santos laughed. "From us? We barely made it to our own moon 50 years ago. What could we possibly do against something that destroys entire star empires?" Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the newly formed Xenolinguistics Department, stood up. "Mr. President, I've been analyzing these transmissions for 3 days. The situation is worse than we thought. These aren't just attacks. It's complete extinction. Entire civilizations are being erased." She pulled up intercepted communications between alien species. "Listen to this transmission from something called the Crystal Federation. It was sent 12 hours ago." The room fell silent as an alien voice filled the air. The translation software made it sound mechanical, but the fear was clear. "Council Station, this is Crystal Fleet Admiral Zixthar. We have engaged the enemy at the Prism Nebula. Our psychic weapons have no effect." "Repeat, no effect." "The entity is consuming our crew's minds through our own crystal networks. We are cutting all neural links and switching to manual controls, but..." The transmission cut to static. "That was the last message from the Crystal Federation," Dr. Vasquez said quietly. 24 star systems with a combined population of 40 billion. All gone. The room erupted in worried voices. Some leaders demanded to know why this information hadn't been shared sooner. Others wanted to know what Earth's defense plan was. General Morrison raised her hand for silence. There's more. We've been monitoring alien communications. Most of these species don't even know we exist. The ones that do— She paused, choosing her words carefully. They don't think very highly of us. What do you mean? Asked Chancellor Weber. Morrison played another recording. This one was from the Galactic Council's emergency session. The humans are listed in our databases as a Class II primitive species. An alien voice explained. They lack psychic abilities. Their technology is crude. They still use chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Most concerning, they have not achieved planetary unity. They continue to wage wars among themselves. Another voice replied, Then why are we even warning them? They will be consumed like all the others. Their primitive weapons cannot harm an entity that feeds on consciousness itself. Protocol requires we warn all sapient species, regardless of development level, the first voice said with obvious reluctance. The recording ended, and the bunker fell silent. So, President Zhang said slowly, We're the galactic equivalent of cavemen with sticks. That appears to be accurate. Sir, Morrison replied. Foreign Minister Okafor from the African Federation shook her head. This is absurd. We should evacuate. Build generation ships and flee to another galaxy before this thing reaches us. Where? Dr. Vasquez asked. The signals we're receiving suggest this entity can sense intelligent life across vast distances. There may be nowhere to run. She brought up a new display showing Earth's position relative to the expanding zone of dead worlds. Based on the pattern of destruction, this enemy will reach our solar system in approximately 18 months, maybe less. 18 months to prepare for something that destroyed civilizations millions of years more advanced than us, President Santos muttered. We might as well surrender now. General Morrison's aide, Colonel James Park, stepped forward. Actually, sir, there might be something else to consider. All eyes turned to him. I've been studying the tactical reports from the destroyed civilizations, he continued. Every single one of them tried the same approach. Advanced energy weapons, psychic attacks, collective consciousness strategies. All of them relied on the very thing this enemy consumes, intelligence. Your point, Colonel? Chancellor Weber asked. My point is that maybe being primitive isn't a weakness this time. Maybe it's an advantage. Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. The psychological profiles we've been able to piece together suggest this entity targets higher intelligence first. It's drawn to complex thoughts, organized minds, advanced reasoning. Human minds are chaotic, Colonel Park added. We think in contradictions. We make illogical decisions. We operate on emotions and instincts as much as logic. Maybe that makes us invisible to it. Or maybe, General Morrison said grimly, it just means we'll last 5 minutes instead of 5 seconds. The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to hide. Others demanded they build the biggest weapons possible. A few suggested trying to contact the alien civilizations and offer to serve as refugee ships. It was President Zhang who finally asked the question that changed everything. General Morrison, he said, in your professional military opinion, what would happen if we actually tried to fight this thing? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, sir, we'd probably lose, but every report we've received says the same thing. This enemy expects certain types of attacks, psychic warfare, energy weapons, coordinated fleet actions planned by supercomputers. It seems to adapt to those tactics instantly. She called up images of destroyed alien fleets. Look at these battle reports. The enemy knew exactly how to counter every strategy, like it could read their plans before they made them. It probably could, Dr. Vasquez said. If it feeds on intelligence, it might be able to absorb tactical knowledge from the minds it consumes. Then what are you suggesting? Asked Prime Minister Abbas. General Morrison smiled, and it was not a nice smile. I'm suggesting that maybe just this once, being the crazy, unpredictable, violent species in the galaxy, might actually work in our favor. You want to fight it? I want to do what humans do best, sir. I want to be absolutely, completely unreasonable. This thing has been consuming advanced civilizations that think in logical patterns. It's probably never encountered a species that makes military decisions based on spite, territorial stubbornness, and the principle of, if we're going down, we're taking you with us. The room fell silent again. Colonel Park added, the alien reports all mention the same thing. As soon as their crews came into contact with this entity, they became confused and lost the ability to think clearly. But what if confusion is just another Tuesday for us? President Santos leaned back in his chair. You're talking about fighting cosmic horror with human stupidity. I'm talking about fighting cosmic horror with human unpredictability, Morrison corrected. This thing has spent eons consuming rational, logical, organized minds. It's probably never encountered a species whose military doctrine includes tactics like ram the enemy ship and duct tape more explosives to it. Dr. Vasquez pulled up intercepted transmissions from the failed alien defense attempts. Every single civilization tried to understand their enemy before fighting it. They analyzed it, studied it, tried to communicate with it. And we're not going to do that? Chancellor Weber asked. Sir, General Morrison said firmly, we're going to treat it exactly like we'd treat any other threat to human civilization. We're going to hit it with everything we have, using every dirty trick we can think of. And we're not going to stop until either it's dead or we are. And if we lose? Morrison's smile became even more dangerous. Then we're going to make sure it remembers us. This thing might be ancient and powerful, but I guarantee it's never faced a species stupid enough to strap nuclear weapons to asteroids and throw them at enemies we can't possibly defeat. For the first time since the crisis began, some of the world leaders began to look hopeful. President Zhang stood up, all in favor of declaring war on the cosmic horror that's eating the galaxy. Every hand in the room went up, and in distant space, something ancient and terrible continued its slow advance toward a small yellow star, completely unaware that it was about to encounter the only species in the galaxy that considered hopeless last stand to be a valid military strategy. 18 months later, the first human ships left Earth carrying something the galaxy had never seen before, volunteers who actually wanted to fight the cosmic horror. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's first interstellar warship. It looked nothing like the elegant alien vessels she had seen in the intercepted transmissions. The human ship was ugly, brutal, and covered in so many weapons that it barely looked spaceworthy. Admiral, called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communication station. We're picking up another distress signal. This one's from the Aurigan system. Chen walked over to look at the display. The signal was weak, full of static, but the desperation came through clearly. This is Science Station Alpha 7. The entity has reached our outer planets. Our psychic defenses are failing. Can anyone hear this? We are the last Aurigan research facility still transmitting. Please, if anyone receives this message. The signal cut to dead silence. That's the 15th system this week, said Commander Thompson, Chen's second in command. Whatever this thing is, it's accelerating. Chen nodded grimly. For over a year, Earth had been preparing for war while monitoring the galaxy's destruction. The Galactic Council had long since fallen silent. The great alien civilizations were gone one by one, and now it was humanity's turn. Status report on the fleet. All ships are ready, Admiral. 12 destroyers, 8 cruisers, 4 battleships, and our new Dreadnought-class vessels. Total crew, 43,000 volunteers. Chen looked out at the collection of human warships. They were not the largest fleet ever assembled, but they were something new. Every ship was built with one principle in mind: hit hard, hit fast, and never stop fighting. The human ships carried no psychic amplifiers or crystal matrices. No artificial intelligence systems or collective consciousness networks. They were run by individual human crews who communicated through simple radio and made decisions based on training, instinct, and pure stubbornness. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez called out again. We're receiving a transmission. It's from aliens, survivors. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a crab and a spider. Its exoskeleton was cracked and several of its eyes were dim with exhaustion. Unknown vessels, the alien spoke in heavily accented English. This is Captain Cleth of the Drakmari Defense Force. We are the last survivors of our fleet. We have been fighting this entity for 6 months. Chen stepped forward. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We received your position from intercepted distress signals. What's your status? The alien's remaining eyes widened in shock. Earth, the primitive world? But how did you get here so quickly? Your species barely has interstellar capability. We learned fast, Chen replied simply. Now tell me about this enemy. Captain Cleth's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or despair. You cannot fight it, Admiral. It is not a creature you can shoot or bomb. It is hunger itself. It consumes intelligence, thought, consciousness. Our greatest warriors become drooling animals in its presence. Well, what does it look like? It has no fixed form. Sometimes it appears as darkness that moves. Sometimes as geometric shapes that hurt to perceive. Sometimes it looks like nothing at all, just empty space where reality has been torn away. Commander Thompson leaned closer to the screen. How do you fight something like that? You do not fight it, Cleth said with defeat in his voice. You run, you hide. You pray it does not notice you. We tried everything. Energy weapons passed through it. Our psychic attacks fed it. Our smartest battle computers became confused and started firing on our own ships. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Captain, how long can your ships hold position? Perhaps another day. Maybe 2. Why do you ask? Because we're going to try something different. Admiral, with respect, your species is brave, but you do not understand. This entity has destroyed civilizations that were old when your son was young. What can primitive human weapons do against such power? Chen smiled, and Captain Cleth noticed that it was not a comforting expression. Captain, in human military history, we have a saying. If you can't beat them with skill, beat them with violence. If you can't beat them with violence, use more violence. I do not understand, you will. Prepare your remaining ships to follow us in. We're going to show this thing why humans have never been considered a peaceful species. The alien captain's transmission cut off, leaving the human fleet alone in space. Admiral, Commander Thompson said quietly, are you sure about this? Everything we've heard suggests this entity is beyond our understanding. Thompson, that might be exactly what we need, Chen replied. Every alien race we've heard from tried to understand this thing first. They analyzed it, studied it, tried to figure out what it was and how to counter it intelligently. And we're not going to do that? Hell no. We're going to treat it like any other target. Sensors, give me a full scan of the area ahead. Aye, Admiral, scanning. Jesus Christ. On the sensor display, something impossible appeared. It was a hole in space itself, darker than the vacuum around it, but this darkness moved with purpose, reaching out toward the few surviving alien ships like hungry tentacles. There it is, Chen said calmly. The galaxy's greatest nightmare. The crew stared at the display in horror. Several junior officers began to look confused, their eyes becoming unfocused as they gazed at the entity. Eyes off the sensors, Chen barked. Don't try to understand it. Don't analyze it. Just treat it like a target. She turned to her weapons officer. Lieutenant Martinez, I want a firing solution on that thing. Use everything we have. Admiral, our weapons are kinetic projectiles and nuclear warheads. According to the alien reports, physical attacks have no effect on this entity. Martinez, did the aliens try ramming nuclear-tipped asteroids into it at relativistic speeds? No, Admiral. That's not exactly a sophisticated tactical approach. Then we don't know if physical attacks don't work. We only know that alien physical attacks don't work. There's a difference. Chen opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. You all volunteered for this mission knowing we probably wouldn't come home. You're here because when humanity heard that something was eating the galaxy, we decided that was unacceptable. 43,000 human voices responded with cheers and battle cries in dozens of different languages. Our enemy thinks it's the apex predator in this galaxy. Chen continued. It's about to learn that it's never met Earth predators before. All ships prepare to engage. Fire when ready. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked through space. Kinetic projectiles fired at significant fractions of light speed. Plasma cannons and railguns and weapons that were barely, more than controlled explosions. The alien survivors watched in amazement as the primitive human ships threw everything they had at the cosmic horror, and something impossible happened. The entity recoiled. Did we hurt it? Lieutenant Rodriguez asked in shock. I don't know, Chen replied, but it definitely noticed us. All ships prepare for close combat. Whatever happens next, remember, we're not here to win pretty. We're here to make this thing regret it ever came to our galaxy. The darkness in space began to move toward them, faster now, with what seemed almost like anger. Captain Cleth's voice came through the communications again, filled with amazement and terror. Admiral Chen, what have you done? The entity it is focusing entirely on your fleet. It has never shown such attention to a single species before. Good, Chen replied. That means we got its attention. Now let's see if we can keep it. The entity swept toward the human fleet like a living nightmare, and 43,000 humans prepared to do what their species had always done when faced with impossible odds. They prepared to fight anyway. The battle began when the entity reached the human fleet. At first, it tried the same tactics that had worked against every other species. Tendrils of living darkness reached out to touch the human ships, attempting to drain the intelligence from their crews. On the bridge of the Indomitable, several junior officers suddenly stopped working and stared blankly at their stations. "Medical teams to all bridges," Admiral Chen ordered. "Rotate affected crew members out immediately." But something strange happened. Unlike the alien crews who became permanently empty shells, the affected humans began to recover after a few minutes away from their stations. "Admiral," reported Dr. Sarah Kim over the ship's comm system, "the affected crew members are showing signs of recovery. Their cognitive functions are returning to normal." "How is that possible?" Commander Thompson asked. "I don't know, but Petty Officer Jackson just asked me for a sandwich and complained about missing his favorite TV show." "That's pretty normal for Jackson." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Keep monitoring them. All ships continue attack patterns. Don't let up for a second." The human fleet swarmed around the entity like angry hornets. Where alien ships had tried to maintain careful formations and coordinated attacks, the humans fought with organized chaos. The Defiant came in low, emptying its entire missile payload into one section of the darkness. The Retribution followed up with kinetic bombardment from its railguns. The Never Surrender did something that horrified the watching alien survivors. It rammed directly into the entity, while firing nuclear warheads at point-blank range. "Never Surrender report," Chen called out. "We're alive," came the excited voice of Captain Rodriguez. "The ship took heavy damage, but whatever this thing is made of, it doesn't like having a fusion reactor explode inside it." Captain Cleth's voice came through the alien communication channel. "Admiral Chen, your tactics are unprecedented. No species has ever deliberately flown into the entity. That's because no other species was raised on stories about ramming submarines and kamikaze pilots," Chen replied while watching her ships continue their reckless assault. "Sometimes the best tactical decision is the one your enemy can't predict because it's completely insane." The entity began to change its approach. Instead of the slow, methodical consumption it had used on other species, it started lashing out with violent tendrils of dark energy. The Vengeance took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. "Vengeance is gone," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez grimly. "Vengeance crew, this is Admiral Chen," came a voice over the comm. "We're not gone. We're just really angry now. How are you still transmitting?" Chen asked in surprise. "Escape pods, Admiral. All hands abandoned ship before impact. We're now requesting pickup so we can get back in there and hit this thing with something bigger." The entity seemed to pause, as if confused by this response. Every other species had retreated after losing ships. The humans were treating destroyed vessels as a minor inconvenience. "Admiral," called out Sensors Operator Williams, "the entity is changing. It's becoming more aggressive but also more solid. Like our attacks are forcing it to take a physical form." Chen studied the tactical display. The darkness was indeed becoming more defined, taking on a shape that resembled a massive predator with too many teeth and eyes that hurt to look at directly. "All ships, new tactical approach," she announced. "It's trying to scare us by looking like our worst nightmares. Respond with Pattern Omega." "Pattern Omega, Admiral." Commander Thompson looked confused. "That's not a real tactical pattern. It is now. Pattern Omega means, if it's trying to scare you, get angry instead. All ships concentrate fire on whatever part of this thing looks the most threatening." The human fleet responded with enthusiasm. When the entity sprouted massive claws, the humans targeted the claws with concentrated firepower. When it opened what looked like a mouthful of screaming souls, the humans fired nuclear warheads directly down its throat. "This is insane," Captain Cleth transmitted. "Your species is fighting a cosmic horror with anger and spite." "Captain," Chen replied while watching the Relentless perform a barrel roll to avoid being eaten, "you say that like it's a bad thing." The battle continued for 6 hours. The humans lost 11 ships, but each loss only seemed to make the survivors fight harder. Crew members who had been rotated out for mental effects were demanding to get back to their stations. Damaged ships were refusing orders to retreat. Most importantly, the entity was taking damage. "Admiral," reported Dr. Kim from the medical bay, "I've been studying the effects of the entity on our crews. I think I know why we're more resistant than the aliens." "Explain quickly, Doctor." "The entity feeds on organized thought patterns, complex reasoning. The aliens we've been monitoring all think in very structured ways, but human minds are chaotic. We think in contradictions. We hold opposing ideas simultaneously. We make decisions based on emotions that override logic." Another massive explosion lit up space as the Unstoppable sacrificed itself to deliver a payload of antimatter directly into the entity's core. "In other words," Dr. Kim continued, "our minds are too messy for it to digest properly. It's like trying to eat something that's already spoiled." "Doctor," Chen said with pride, "that might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said about human intelligence." The entity began to retreat, pulling back toward the outer system. But the human fleet followed, continuing their relentless assault. "Admiral," Commander Thompson pointed out, "our ammunition is running low. Most ships are down to emergency reserves." Chen looked at the tactical display. They had hurt the entity, but it was still very much alive and very much angry. "Open a channel to the entire fleet." "Channel open, Admiral." "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We came here to fight something that has destroyed entire civilizations. We've proven that it can be hurt, but we're running low on conventional weapons." She paused, looking out at the brave crews who had followed her into this impossible battle. "I'm hereby authorizing Protocol Last Resort. Any ship that still has a functional reactor is cleared to ram the target. Any ship with remaining nuclear ordnance is cleared to detonate it manually if necessary. Any crew member who has a better idea for how to hurt this thing is cleared to try it." "Admiral," came the voice of Captain Park from the Indestructible, "are you ordering us to make suicide runs?" "Captain, I'm ordering you to do whatever it takes to make sure this thing remembers that it made a mistake when it came to our galaxy. The decision on how far you're willing to go is yours." The response from the fleet was immediate and unanimous. Indestructible, moving to ramming speed, fury arming all remaining nuclear warheads for proximity detonation, Spite requesting permission to use the experimental singularity weapon. "Wait," Chen said. "We have a singularity weapon?" "We do now, Admiral. Chief Engineer Martinez has been working on it since we launched. He says it's probably safe to use." "Probably?" "Well, he says it's safer than letting this thing reach Earth." Chen considered this for exactly 2 seconds. "Permission granted. All ships clear the target area. Spite, you are weapons-free for experimental ordnance." What happened next would be talked about by alien survivors for generations. The humans, down to their last weapons and facing an enemy beyond their understanding, decided to test an untried weapon that might destroy them all. The singularity weapon worked. When the artificial black hole collapsed, taking a significant portion of the entity with it, the surviving human ships found themselves alone in space with the torn remnants of their cosmic enemy. And in the silence that followed, Admiral Chen sent a message that would be intercepted by every remaining alien civilization in the galaxy. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. The entity that has been consuming your worlds has been engaged and damaged. It is not invincible. Repeat, the enemy can be killed. Any surviving civilizations who want to join us in finishing this fight will be at the coordinates attached. Bring your biggest weapons and your worst ideas. It's time to take our galaxy back." 2 years after the first battle, the entity was dead. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of New Haven Station, a massive space fortress built in orbit around a dead alien world. Through the viewports, she could see ships from dozens of species that had thought themselves extinct. The final battle had taken place at the galactic core, where the entity had retreated to feed on the massive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. It had grown enormous in size but also desperate. The humans had proven that it could be hurt, and other species had begun to believe that victory was possible. The combined fleet that assembled for the last assault was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Elegant alien ships flying alongside crude human destroyers, crystal beings working with mechanical minds, former enemies united by a single goal, killing the thing that had tried to eat their galaxy, but it was still human tactics that won the day. "The entity expected us to fight it with our most advanced weapons," Chen said to the assembled alien representatives. Instead, we flew garbage scows filled with antimatter into its core. It expected logical battle plans. We gave it chaos. It expected us to retreat when we took casualties. We used our fallen ships as guided missiles. Captain Cleth, now promoted to Admiral of the reformed Drakmari Defense Force, clicked his mandibles in what Chen had learned was laughter. Admiral Chen, your species has redefined what we consider military tactics. I have seen human soldiers strap explosives to themselves and jump into the enemy's mouth. I have seen human pilots use their own ships as battering rams. Your people fight like they have nothing to lose. That's because we don't. Chen replied simply. The entity was going to kill everyone in the galaxy anyway. That kind of puts things in perspective. Dr. Vasquez, now head of the new Galactic Communication Network, approached with a datapad. Admiral, we've received the final casualty reports from all participating species. Chen took the pad and read through the numbers. They were sobering. Humanity had lost 60% of its fleet and 200,000 crew members, but they had also saved a galaxy. The memorial services will begin next week, Dr. Vasquez continued. Representatives from 47 species want to attend. Good. Those people deserve to be remembered. Ambassador Roth from the Crystal Federation floated over, her crystalline form reflecting the lights of the command center. Admiral Chen, I have been authorized by the Reformed Galactic Council to make an official request. What kind of request? We would like humanity to serve as the primary defense force for the galaxy. Chen nearly choked on her coffee. I'm sorry, what? The entity was not unique, Ambassador Roth explained. Our archives speak of other cosmic threats that have emerged throughout galactic history. Dark matter creatures, reality-eating viruses, things from between dimensions. In the past, these threats destroyed entire sectors before burning themselves out. Admiral Cleth nodded agreement. Your species has proven capable of fighting enemies that operate beyond normal understanding. You think in ways that cosmic horrors cannot predict or counter. You want us to be the galaxy's exterminators? Chen asked. We want you to be the galaxy's guardians, Ambassador Roth corrected. Your people have shown that when faced with impossible odds, you become more dangerous, not less. This is a rare trait in intelligent species. Chen looked around the command center at her staff. Commander Thompson had lost an arm in the final battle but refused medical leave. Lieutenant Rodriguez had been promoted to captain and now commanded his own ship. Dr. Kim was working on new weapons based on human military doctrine. What would this involve? Chen asked. A permanent human military presence in all sectors of the galaxy, Ambassador Roth explained. Early warning systems to detect cosmic threats. Authority to take whatever action you deem necessary to protect galactic civilization. Even if our actions seem completely insane to everyone else? Especially then, Admiral Cleth said firmly. Cosmic threats do not respond to rational approaches. They require irrational solutions. Your species excels at irrational solutions. Chen considered the offer. Earth had been preparing for this conversation for months. The human government had already voted on how to respond. We accept, she said, but with conditions. What conditions? First, any human crews assigned to galactic defense are volunteers only. We're not going to draft people for cosmic horror duty. Agreed. Second, we get to train volunteers from other species in human combat doctrine. If we're going to be the galaxy's defenders, we need backup who understand our methods. What kind of training? Ambassador Roth asked nervously. How to make tactical decisions based on spite. How to turn retreats into attacks. How to weaponize anything that isn't nailed down. How to fight enemies that are bigger, smarter, and more powerful than you by being absolutely unreasonable about it. Admiral Cleth's mandibles clicked in amusement. You want to teach the galaxy how to think like humans in combat. I want to make sure that if another cosmic threat appears, it doesn't face just one species of crazy primates. I want it to face an entire galaxy that's learned to fight like humans. The alien representatives exchanged glances. Finally, Ambassador Roth spoke. Admiral Chen, 3 years ago, most of our species considered humans to be primitive savages barely worthy of notice. And now we realize that primitive savage might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Your species has saved us all by refusing to accept that some enemies cannot be defeated. Chen smiled. Ambassador, that's not just human military doctrine. That's human nature. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten. 6 months later, the first Human Defense Corps training facility opened on New Haven Station. Volunteers from across the galaxy came to learn what humans called aggressive problem-solving. The training was unlike anything they had ever experienced. Alien cadets learned to ignore impossible odds. They practiced making battle plans based on what would annoy the enemy most. They studied human military history and discovered concepts like acceptable losses, scorched earth tactics, and fighting retreat. Most importantly, they learned the fundamental principle of human warfare. When facing an enemy you cannot understand, don't try to understand it. Just hit it until it stops moving. Admiral Chen stood in her office, looking out at the training grounds where a Crystal Federation officer was learning how to throw grenades while a mechanical Union drone practiced ramming. Maneuvers. Commander Thompson entered with the daily reports. How are our students doing? Chen asked. Better than expected. The Drakmari are natural fighters, so they're adapting quickly. The crystal beings are struggling with the concept of acceptable friendly fire, but they're learning. The energy creatures are having trouble with physical weapons, but they've started experimenting with turning themselves into guided missiles. And the collective remnants? They've stopped trying to achieve perfect coordination and started working on what they call organized chaos. Yesterday, they successfully executed a battle plan that made no sense to anyone, including themselves. Chen nodded approvingly. Perfect. Any word from Earth? The government has approved funding for 50 new training facilities. They're also sending more instructors. Apparently, word about our success has reached every military academy on Earth. Good. The galaxy is going to need all the crazy we can provide. Thompson paused at the door. Admiral, do you really think there are more cosmic threats out there? Chen looked back out at the training grounds where representatives of dozens of species were learning to fight like humans. Thompson, this is a big galaxy. There are probably things out there that make our last enemy look friendly. But now, instead of advanced civilizations that think logically and fight predictably, these threats are going to face something new. What's that? An entire galaxy full of species that have learned to fight like they're insane, armed with weapons that make no sense, using tactics that violate every rule of civilized warfare. Chen smiled as she watched an alien cadet successfully complete the course called How to Turn Your Spaceship into a Weapon. Any cosmic horror that shows up in our galaxy now is going to face the one thing that no ancient evil has ever encountered before, an entire civilization that has learned to think like humans in a fight. And what if that's not enough? Chen's smile became decidedly unfriendly. Then we'll teach them the most important lesson humanity has to offer. When you're outgunned, outnumbered, and facing impossible odds, you don't surrender. You get creative. In the depths of space, ancient things stirred and noticed that something had changed in this galaxy. The usual patterns of rise and fall, of civilizations growing complex and then being consumed, had been disrupted. Something new had emerged. Something that fought back in ways that defied understanding. The ancient threats began to reconsider their plans for this particular spiral arm of the universe. And in training facilities across the galaxy, humans continued teaching other species the most dangerous skill in the universe: how to be absolutely, completely unreasonably human when faced with the impossible. The stars were no longer silent. They whispered of the day Earth sent its beasts to answer the galaxy's cry for help, and those beasts had decided to stay.